attend the monthly meeting of the Health and Community Committee, which will be a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Council Chamber, Derry Road, Strabane, on Thursday, the 13th of March 2025 at 4 p.m. So we'll take the roll call. Alderman McMorris. Alderman Montgomery.
Online, Karen.
Alderman Wilkinson. Councillor Boggs.
And Shaw, Karen.
Councillor Boyle.
Apologies.
Councillor Clark.
And Shaw.
Councillor Deeney.
And Shaw.
Councillor Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Farrell. Councillor Heaney.
And Shaw.
Councillor Hutton.
Shaw.
Councillor McDade.
Here.
And Councillor Tierney. And can I just check, Alderman Wilkinson? No, that's okay. Thank you, members.
All right, we'll move on to our broadcasting statement. So I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website. And we'll move on to number 4, which is declaration of members' interest. Do we have any declarations at the minute?
Just acknowledge Councillor Harkins.
Yeah, perfect. And number 5, we have chairperson's business, and I have a few pieces of chairperson's business today, and I'll bring in Councillor Boggs first.
Very Mugget, Kihira, and can I just raise in relation to an event that took place in Strabane on Tuesday, and I've taken opportunities within this chamber and within the Guildhall before at this committee to highlight the scourge of drugs right across our society and in our communities, and particularly the deaths and the loss of young lives, particularly here in Strabane town, but I know indeed in Derry as well, and also across the northwest. And I just want to commend the event that took place in St Pat's Hall between Holy Cross College and Strabane Academy. There were 300 pupils at sixth form age who are about to leave to go to university in September or wherever their path takes them. And there was a really hard-hitting production based on the true life events of a 17-year-old boy, Daniel, who sadly passed away after taking ecstasy. It's something that I've been working on since November, but have been working on along with the Community Foundation, who provided the money, Fountain Street Community Development Association, and also Carol Stewart in her role in the local community, local growth partnership. And also I know Carol is a member of staff at council, but just to thank them for working on it. It was a really hard-hitting event. From the feedback that we've got back from the schools and also from the pupils that were there, was that they took a lot from it. But I just want to reiterate that, you know, as local elected politicians and councillors, along with community organisations and groups and schools, and as a local council, we need to keep doing everything that we can to try and alleviate the pain and suffering that is being felt, particularly whenever it comes to the loss of life of our young people. So I think while I take the opportunity to, you know, criticise that we don't do enough at times, I think it's also important to raise when there is good work done, and hopefully all those partners who helped make Tuesday possible, hopefully we can continue to do stuff, particularly within Strabane town, but right across this council city and district as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boggs. And I heard it was a brilliant production, so well done to everybody that was involved. Excellent work. Next, I have Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And I just wanted to comment on the Friends of Breastfeeding Awards that are to be held on the 29th of March in Tullamore. And they are an all-Ireland awards. And we are in a really luxurious position where we have quite a number of local groups and local people who have been nominated in various categories. And I just want us as a council to wish them all the very best. We have the Advocate of the Year, Helen Hancock and Dr. Maria Hearn have both been nominated in that category. We have Breastfeeding Initiative of the Year. We have Northwest BAPS as a whole being nominated there as volunteers who go above and beyond to raise awareness and visibility. And then we have obviously the media feature artwork or event, and we have the people a Northwest BAPS mural nurtured that has also been nominated for an award. And I think that this all really marks how far we have come as a council area. We have been trying to raise awareness and we have been trying to raise visibility and provide support to women who have been looking to breastfeed. We have had the lowest rates of breastfeeding in this council area for over 30 years, and that isn't in the North or Ireland. That is across the globe that we have the worst rates. So over the last number of years, these volunteers, these fantastic women have come together to do everything they can to provide support to other mothers, families out there to make sure that they know that there's support and help available on their breastfeeding journeys. I think that we have seen over the course of they've only been active for the last 3 years. And during that period, we have seen breastfeeding rates here in this council area actually increase. So they have to be commended and congratulated for that. And I just want us as a council to provide them with our best wishes as they go to those awards in Tullamore on the 29th. So thank you for that. They also had a screening of the documentary Milk in the Guildhall 2 weeks ago. And I don't know if anybody has seen it, but I would really recommend. It's on YouTube. Have a look at it. It's a powerful documentary of the industry that is actually killing babies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duffy. And you're right, they're such an inspirational group of women, and it's lovely that they've got this recognition. So best wishes, and we'll send them from all of us. So Councillor Hutton next.
Thank you, Chair. And it's just a short note of thanks to Council in relation to the works that were carried out at Craigan Neighbourhood Partnership, both inside and outside of the building. The paintwork is absolutely gorgeous. It's immaculate. Councillor Emma McGinley has asked me to bring this up here under Chair's business today, just to say a word of thanks for the speedy work that was carried out. We have been in the building a few times since it has been done up, and it's just a completely different place. Staff morale has risen and the place is just looking absolutely beautiful. So we just wanted to put on record our thanks to the full council team for having that done in a timely fashion. It has definitely made a big difference both inside and outside the building. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Ashley. It's all very positive, isn't it? It's lovely. All right. I don't think I've forgotten anybody. So we'll move on to item number 6, which is matters arising from the open minutes of Health and Community Committee held on Thursday, the 13th of February. Do we have any matters arising? No. Paul?
Paul would stop eating whenever it's supposed to be here. Just in relation to HC 3025, it's just to see if there was any updates from the Green Infrastructure Manager in relation to what learning or not using the footpaths that I had raised concerns about going forward, or how we try and make sure that we're rectifying that issue.
Haven't a specific update, but I know from the project board meeting, there's engagement with a range of organisations representing various strands of disability, including visual disability and physical disability, as part of informing the future design process and the future selection of materials. And some consideration has been given to the level of colour contrasting, particularly in relation to the street furniture involved. If you require any more information, I can ask Colin to come to you directly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boggs. Do we have a proposer for matters arising? No? Oh, sorry, jeepers. My head's away. Right, okay. Number 7 is Ending Violence Against Women and Girls Change Fund, and we have Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is the purpose of the report is to seek your approval of the recommendations of the Tier 3 fund and the assessment panel's recommendation, and to seek your approval of the EVAWG consensual action plans received from our 8 local growth partnerships. Members, you'll be aware from February's committee, TAO was provided council funding to be utilised by the community and voluntary sector, and there was an open call for Tier 3 of this change fund. And also in recent weeks, we've had further engagement with local growth partnerships around this particular area of work. Members, you'll see in your report that there was a publicly advertised open call for the Tier 3 applications, and those grants would be for between £15,000 and £25,000. And the fund awards are for significant specialised programmes of activity, which include collaboration with other community-based organisations. All applications had to achieve a threshold score of 60% or above. And within this change fund, there were 8 applications received, and a total of 8 were deemed successful, having scored above the threshold. So there are applications that are deemed successful but unable to be funded at this stage due to no available funding. They'll be placed on a reserve list should future funding become available during the 25-26 financial year. A list of the recommendations for the change fund is outlined in your Appendix A, members. You'll see within the finance section and from the report last month, members, there's a total of 165,000 has been allocated to the council area, and that was 100% funded by TAO. So with regards to the recommendations, seeking your approval of the recommendations of the Tier 3 assessment panel, including approval to issue letters of offer to the successful organisations in your Appendix A. That's Foyle Women's Information Network, 25,000, Foyle Women's Aid, £21,280, and Our Streets, 3,719 and 56 pence. And also, members, to seek your approval of the action plans received from the 8 local growth partnerships, and you'll see those in your Appendix B, and those is for spend in the 25-26 financial year as well. And we'll issue the letters of offer subject to approval after this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I just want to welcome this funding. I work in GSAP in the Ballyarnett area, so I have the privilege of working with some of these groups on the ground. They're doing fantastic work. And through this funding now, they have now put on their action plan for the Make the Pledge campaign, which has been adapted from this funding. This is going to be carried out through educational programmes, public pledges, safe space initiatives and awareness campaigns, and it will provide individuals and organisations with the knowledge in order to drive lasting change. It's a campaign focused on real action and not just awareness. We all have a role to play and we all have to take accountability. And by backing this campaign and the funding associated with it, then we will ensure that women and girls feel safe and are made to feel safe everywhere and anywhere. And we will promote a future where respect is the norm and not just exception. So thank you for the funding. It's going a long, long way. I can guarantee I've seen the action plan and I was blown away by it, so it's a great initiative. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Clark. Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report, Barry. I'm happy to second it if you were proposing it there. I'm happy to second it. I suppose just to echo, like even if you look at all those action plans from the local growth partnerships, are amazing. Like all the ideas, aren't they? So, just one thing I thought was really interesting when you look at the ones that have been funded, and I know we've got a few there that have passed the threshold but aren't being funded, but might be. It's really good. I think there's a taxi company in there. Isn't that like that's really good that they've scored so well, that they know what they're doing, they have a plan. It's just because we expect and we hope that everyone will be doing more, but even just we had such a long conversation about taxis in the special council meeting and about how people feel safe at night and all the rest of it. So it's really good to see that they've reached out to apply for that as well. So just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. Alderman Hussey.
Thanks for the opportunity, Chair, and associated with the remarks that have gone before. The point's well made about with regard to the taxi firms. Sometimes people are able to think outside the box and bring added value to various programs. But I particularly welcome the work going out into the local growth partnerships throughout the district. I pay particular attention and my thanks to Derrick Valley Care, who have taken on the programme in my own Derrick area. But again, thanks to all of those throughout the local growth partnership areas who have taken on board the programmes. I know from talking to Martin Duffy as to the extent of what they're hoping to do there, and I'm sure it's the same throughout all of the other DEAs. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Boggs?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And not to rehash what everybody else says, but we must not to mention the event that took place in Strabane on Sunday last, which was the Strabane Local Growth Partnerships walk, silence is violence, and walking to end violence against women and girls in Strabane town. There was huge numbers turned out. And I think the marketing around it and the banner that has now been produced to be used at future events and the different bits and pieces that the Local Growth Partnership have come forward with so far has really set up in good stead for the additional money now that will come in 25 and 26. And I think from looking at the action plans that we looked at previously, that's what a lot of the Local Growth Partnerships seem to be doing, using the initial money to build on what they're going to do in the year ahead. But just to put it on record, our thanks to all those who turned out on Sunday and sent a really, really strong message from Strabane Town Centre that it won't be tolerated and it needs to end, and it needs to end right now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Boggs. So we were proposed by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor McDade. Perfect. All right. Item number 8 is consensual grant making model, and Barry's going to take us through this.
Thank you, Chair. And just following on from the last report, members, where you'll see we've given out monies to the 8 growth partnerships through consensual grant aid. This is to update you on the recommendations emanating from the independent evaluation report carried out on our pilot consensual grant aid making model, and to seek your approval for the retention of this grant making model to replace all the open call grant aid processes from this financial year 2025-26 that's incoming. So members, you'll see in your report during the last financial year, Council agreed to pilot the move of our other grant aid programmes to consensual grant aid making model and aligned our local community plan structures. So the Community Support Fund, Good Relations and Policing and Community Safety Partnership grant aid programmes had been operating as competitive funds via an open call process administered in-house by Council since the new Council was established in 2015. At last April's Health and Community meeting, members approved and endorsed the utilisation of the consensual approach for the Community Support Fund for the 5 urban DAs and the Good Relations Grant Aid Programme for the 24-25 financial year as part of a 1-year pilot programme. And it was agreed in addition that the Community Support Fund would continue to be administered by Council through an open call process for the 24-25 year in the 3 rural DAs. Members will also be aware, and the previous report was highlighted, this model has also been used in other funding programmes. In September 24, members approved the appointment of Lorraine McCourt, consultant, to undertake an independent evaluation of a consensual grant aid making model. You'll see, members, in section 3, the engagement that has taken place from October to December with all various stakeholders. Feedback from this consultation process indicated that the consensual grant making model was favoured over traditional open call. The opportunities presented through the implementation of the consensual model in the long term outweigh the tweaks required in the administrative process. And again, you'll see a number of recommendations, members, in section 3.3. Lorraine McCourt Consulting presented the final report and findings to senior council officers in February, and also a presentation was also organised for the chairs of the growth partnerships, the neighbourhood renewal strategy managers, and the rural network rapid and the northwest community network. All attendees agreed with the findings and the recommendations from the evaluation report. So, members, and just one other item to note: any funding being allocated through the grant making model consensually will be subject to council receiving a letter of offer from specific funders ensuring alignment to delivering on the objectives of the funding. So the recommendation is that members note the content of the report and endorse the recommendations emanating from the evaluation report and approve the retention of the consensual grant making model to replace the open call process for the 25-26 financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Boggs?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and happy to propose the report. I think the consensual grant making process has been well rehearsed in this committee already, but I think we can't talk up the positives about it enough, particularly seeing, and I can only talk from the experience that I've seen in Strabane Town of moving from the open call process to grant, or the consensual, sorry, and how hard everybody worked to get there. And I think just at 2.9, the report, it talks about the ending violence against women and girls. I think that shows the real benefit of consensual, that when money becomes available at short notice, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, at short notice, it is able to get out the door by a consensus with everybody around the table at the same time. I think the report highlights, and I agree that there still need to build capacity within the rural areas to ensure that if they want to, that they move to consensual, and hopefully they will want to in the future because of the benefit that it shows in other areas. But they're just not at that stage yet, and that has to be respected. But I think there's an onus on us and on council to help them to build that capacity going forward into the future. I was disappointed, I have to say, on page 44 of the report 175 of our pack, in relation to comments that are made in the second bullet point of that page and some of the language that is being used in relation to community, so others in communities being isolated, consultation around moving to consensual grant making not being well publicised, and that some groups seem reluctant to look beyond their own immediate areas. I attended more meetings than I probably should have in my capacity as a councillor, and went to the open call community meetings to make sure that the people who needed to be around the table, or maybe who weren't considered in the open call grant process before, to make sure that they were informed of where this was going, to make sure that the larger groups that do at times end up being our lead partners whenever it comes to this funding, to make sure that they were seeing the needs of the smaller groups and how they could accommodate them, build capacity within those smaller groups, and then hopefully they will be able to take on bigger projects and more leading roles in the future. That what is included on page 44 of the report is the complete opposite to what I've seen. And it's in that vein that I would hope that whoever has contributed that, and everybody is entitled to their opinion, and people's opinions should be respected. But if there are individuals concerned that those are genuine concerns that they are genuine concerns that they have, I would really hope that they would bring them forward to the likes of local growth partnerships, to council officers, to talk through. There is no point in that sitting in a report, because now nobody knows who that is from. Maybe somebody does, I don't. But nobody knows who that is from, and we have no way then of addressing that or making it any better. Because on the round, and I'll say it, I went on the meetings where there was no other elected rep, and that's not to bung myself up, purely on the basis to make sure the groups were being listened to. And I thought, from an outsider looking in, that they absolutely were, particularly the smaller groups. And we have seen in this area, I can only talk for this area again, that there were smaller groups that have been able to deliver programs that they wouldn't have been able to before, because they would have never got a look in on the open call process. So I just want to put that on record, that it was disappointing to read some of the language that is used in page 44, and I don't believe that is, it's not reflective of all the groups in the area that I represent anyway. So I just thought it important to pick it out, and hopefully if there is a way that we can engage with people who feel like that going forward, that we do, because it's not right that anybody feels like that. But at the same time, I do not feel that it is a one size fits all kind of feeling for everybody. So I just wanted to put that on, but happy to propose, and just that we try and keep a focus on building capacity within the rural to allow them to move forward in the future. Thanks, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councillor Boggs. Councillor Clark.
Sorry, I just want to welcome the consensual mode approach, and I think it's very important that it's retained. It's very important that groups work collaboratively rather than in silos. And I think, by adopting this approach as well, that you can identify the groups better that are in need, and they can get a bigger slice of the pie then, where when you had open call, it was more diluted, and you were getting maybe £1,000 here, £800 there. And while that's very welcome, it was very hard to make any kind of impact on the ground. So I know in Ballyarnett, we're very, very into the whole consensual approach, and I hope it's retained and we move forward with it, because it is the way forward, really. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Are you content to second?
Yes, I keep forgetting to do that, yes.
Grand. Thank you, Amanda. Alderman Hussey.
Thanks for the opportunity again, Chair. And with regard to Councillor Boggs' remarks, I can understand where he's coming from, particularly the reference here to Strabane, which is a neighbourhood renewal area, is a completely different model than we have in the rural area, with the capacity that's in there, and having now and again attending neighbourhood renewal growth partnership meetings, because part of the Derrick actually falls into this. Don't ask how that happens, but it does. I can see the bodies that are on board, and I can see the work that's been done in the background there. One of the concerns I know in the rural, particularly, it's named in the bullet point above the one that Councillor Boggs refers to there, the geographic widespread. And within our rural areas, you can sometimes end up with a conclave of the willing. And it's reaching out and bringing in those who are beyond that, but just as deserving, and without that capacity to come in to the overall process. The process needs further development in the rural area, and I welcome in the report 4.2 where that is recognised and that support is still ongoing to the 3 rural areas. I'm sure it will eventually materialise and mature to the point that it can match in with those areas that are linked in with neighbourhood renewal partnerships. I welcome the programme. I welcome the fact that it's really encouraging local decision making at a truly local level, but it's just getting and tweaking the process that will match the local area, because as we all know, the rural areas in particular would be different from urban areas, and indeed those areas with neighbourhood renewal partnerships as part of them. But welcome the report and thank Barry for that. Thank you, Chair.
The Alderman Hussey.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of comments there around the rural area, Chair. Look, the big thing around our consultation in the rural area is obviously there's a lack of resources compared to the urban area, which is reflected in the report as well. But there's less money. There's not a lot of other available funding streams that come out, unlike some of the urban areas. There's a reluctance probably to make decisions without having an open process that smaller groups have availed of in recent years. So we are going to work through that. There's been a number of meetings since the report was presented, so I do think we'll get there eventually, but it's just going to take a wee bit of time. And well, more money would always help members, obviously, in terms of the decisions around all of these. But look, it's an understandable concern of our rural partnerships, but we are working on collaboration, and at some stage we will get to that point, but it's just going to take a bit extra time.
Chair, just briefly, it would be remiss, sorry, we haven't, because I think the report's author, Lorraine, as well, deserves our appreciation, because the engagement session that I attended with her, she was fantastic. She was able, if you made a point, she was able to drill down to make sure that you actually knew what you were talking about for a start. And then after that, the report was very comprehensive in relation to all the meetings that she had. So just to put on record our thanks as well to her for her work.
Thank you, Councillor Boggs. Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Barry, for the report. Happy to support the recommendation on behalf of the SDLP. The evaluation report clearly details the benefits to communities, the benefits to community partners as well. So that's something that we should adopt as a council moving forward. So happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. So we'll move on into item number 9, and that is Social Supermarket Action Plans 25 to 26, Strabane Community Project and Foyle Network Foundation, and that is Barry again.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I'm not going to go into you can see there's quite a bit of detail in the report. This is one of a number of reports in recent years we've had around this particular topic, but the purpose of the report is to update you on the transitioning process for the original pilots of the Social Supermarket programme from DFC to Council, and that commenced on the 1st of April this year, and to seek your approval of the Social Supermarket Action Plan received from Foyle Network Foundation to cover Ballyarnett, Waterside, Moore, Foyleside and Faughan DAs, including approval of £234,685.27 to the lead partner Foyle Network Foundation, and also to seek your approval of the Social Supermarket Action Plan received from Strabane Community Project to cover Strabane Town, Spurn and Derg DAs, including approval of £141,554.97 to the lead partner Strabane Community Project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Boggs.
I was going to try and let somebody else come in because I feel like I've done a 100 talks since we came under this chamber. But look, just to welcome the report and thank Barry for it. There's obviously vital work going on out in the community, and it's much more, as is highlighted within the report as well. It's much more than just providing food for people. It very much as a wraparound service in terms of mental health, other basic needs that people will have. And I know the good work that happens in this end of the council area, and in particular, the Strabane Community Project are keen to expand now out into the rural, and that ties into what we were saying before about trying to build capacity out there as well, and you know, highlighting and pinpointing and recognising the people in those communities who may not be in paid positions and community positions, but people that know what is happening and tying in with them to try and make the best difference. Obviously, we would like to see less of a reliance on social supermarkets and on food banks more generally, but as long as they are needed, I'm happy to see this kind of work ongoing. The only thing that I do want to, and it's not so much a question for anybody, but more a comment, is in 3.2 and 3.3. 3.2 just concerns me that while it may be a good thing for community groups and the likes of those named, that they are now working with council, and that may be a much simpler process for them in terms of their returns and issues that they may come up against rather than dealing directly with the department. I do have some reservation that as money and budgets become tighter, and in years where the money may not be what it is this year that we're giving them, that it is then council that delivers that bad news, and whether we try to then mitigate that loss out of council resource and the department gets off the hook. Basically is my fear, that it may not happen this year, but in future years, they are not directly linked anymore to those organisations. It's us that's passing the money out, and when the reduction, or if a reduction comes, I hope that that's not the case, but if a reduction comes, it's us that are at the coalface to deliver the bad news. So that's just the concern that I have, the one I put on record now, and whether officers have any view in that themselves. So, but happy to propose the recommendation as well. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, through yourself, Chair. Members, we had an online meeting with our colleagues in DFC around the same topic that I had asked to be addressed 2 weeks ago, and we've been informed, and you'll see there's an element of it in the report, that there's been a 3-year budget for this project agreed through the welfare mitigations programme, and the minister signed it off. But obviously, it will be subject to a letter of offer every year as part of our community support fund as well. So we did highlight the same message that Councillor Boggs has given here today, in terms of council can't be the person giving the bad news if there are budget cuts. So again, there'll be a review of this programme going forward, what the future of it looks like after the 3 years, but that money is guaranteed. We're led to believe, and we have asked that is put within the letter of offer when they send the letter of offer out year on year, that it's actually in place and the plan is in place for 3 years. And then, well in advance of the 3rd year funding ending, there needs to be a proper consultation around all this, where it's going. Is it then an allocation on top of our community support fund every year? So that's, officers are engaging regularly with DFC around that. Yeah.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor McDade?
Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to second the report as well. Thank you for the report, and there's a lot of detail in it. Again, hopefully we'll not have to need this forever and ever, but I would agree. I hadn't actually thought of that, so that's a good point. You know, I think we do need to be making sure that the funding has continued to come through. Obviously, I know more about the Foyle Network Foundation. There's no point in pretending I know as much about the Strabane, but I do know more about Foyle, and I've spoken to Karen on lots of occasions, and it's still, just to highlight, the anti-poverty strategy is still not in place. So, like, if we're ever going to, like, she presented on here last year, was it? And she says her goal is that she's not needed anymore. Do you know, that's the goal, is that sort of service isn't needed anymore? And the only way that's ever going to happen is with the anti-poverty strategy and making sure that everyone gets everything they're entitled to and what we deserve as a community, as a society. But no, thank you very much for the report, and happy to second it. It's very needed.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor McDade. Moving on then to item 10, and that is the NIE way leave at the Brandywell Showgrounds car park, and that is Barry again.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is to seek your approval for the granting of the way leave at the Brandywell Showgrounds car park. Council's been asked by NIE members to grant way leave to the housing developer GIDA in order to connect the electricity to a new housing development on Letterkenny Road. And this would involve allowing a cable to be connected to an existing substation identified in the photograph in section 2.1 of your papers, and that's at the Brandywell Showgrounds car park, close to the Longtower Youth Club. The proposed way leave member fee is based on NIE's standard table of fees and amounts to a rent of 54p per annum. So the recommendation, members, is that you approve the granting of this way leave as detailed in your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Hutton?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Perfect, thank you. Second, councillor Farrell.
Happy to second on behalf of the SDLP. How are we going to spend the 54 pence per year?
Thank you, that's great. Moving on to item number 11 then, and that is the Health and Community Directorate Annual Service Delivery Plan 25-26, and that is Karen.
Members, just in presenting the plan, you'll recognise that it follows the normal format of our corporate arrangements for taking forward the service planning for the forthcoming financial year, and also to reflect on the achievements within the plan. So without going into the detail of it, members, it's there for your comment, and we can come back to you with more detailed briefings if you feel that that would be of benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have a proposer? Proposed councillor Hutton. Seconded councillor Farrell. Perfect. Okay, item number 12, and that is the Northern Ireland Football Fund, and that is Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is to update you on the issues for consideration of respect of applications to the Northern Ireland Football Fund to seek your endorsement of an approach proposed for advancement of the funding application for the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium by Derry City Football Club, and that members agreed to the provision of a letter of support for Institute Football Club in respect of its application to the Northern Ireland Football Fund and for any other applicant that may present before the closing date. Members, you'd be aware there was an update in February committee regarding the application process, and there's been considerable concerns around the funding criteria, in particular the 40% match funding required if council was an applicant for a council-owned ground. In relation to the Brandywell, officers have been meeting internally and with Derry City Football Club to discuss options for progressing the application. In addition, officers and members have discussed these options at elected member briefing sessions. And you'll see in section 2 there, members, and as you're all aware, should council apply as the owners of the stadium, we'd be required to provide 40% match funding. In a scenario with the club as the applicant, Derry City Football Club would be required to fund a minimum of 5% for the overall project as per the terms of the Northern Ireland Football Fund. Members, you'll also be aware, because of provisions in the Londonderry Corporation Act, the council is currently unable to let the stadium for a period of more than 12 months. So as such, the licence between Derry City Football Club and council is issued for a period of 51 weeks at a time. Council understands that amending or repealing this provision will require the intervention of the Northern Ireland Assembly. If council is minded, members in principle, to consider transferring the transfer of ownership or a long-term lease at the Brandywell Stadium to Derry City Football Club, Derry City Football Club could apply to the Northern Ireland Football Fund as a performance club who intend to become owners. Should council adopt this approach, council's legal team would immediately commence a process of repeal of the current restrictive leasing provision. And while the risk is that it would require time to resolve this matter, the full lease would not need to be in place until stage 7 of the Northern Ireland Football Fund process, and that stage is a tender of the appointment of a contractor. There are therefore 3 potential options in respect of an application to the Football Fund for the Brandywell Stadium. Council is the applicant and would require 40% match funding. Council agrees in principle to enter a minimum 25-year lease with Derry City Football Club and take forward a formal approach to the Northern Ireland Assembly to have section 273 of the Act repealed or amended, enabling Derry City Football Club to submit the application with a match contribution of a minimum of 5%, and the third option, do nothing and submit an application to the Football Fund. The granting of a long-term lease may impact other user groups at the stadium, members, and I've listed those in section 3.4. The terms of any lease agreement with Derry City Football Club would seek to address the interests of groups and other users while simultaneously being agreeable to the football club. In respect to the above, Derry City Football Club have indicated it would be content with option 3.3b and would be cognizant of the requirements of other user groups in any subsequent discussions around the terms of a long-term lease. With regards to the application to the fund by Institute Football Club, club representatives have recently met with council officers to discuss their proposals and seek council support with regards to participation in a cross-sectoral advisory steering group. Subsequently, a request from council for letter support for the club bid towards the development has also been received, and that will be provided to the club tomorrow, members. Members, you'll see in section 4 around implications, the other user groups and possible implications. But just for noting, if the pitch at the Brandywell outside of this process were to be replaced with grass, which is a potential FAA and UEFA requirement anyway going forward. The above issues around user displacement and replacing a 3G with a grass, whatever is, regardless of the current lease funding discussions with Derry City Football Club. Just for noting as well, members, the application going forward, if members agree to this today, the overall fund is just shy of £12 million. So it's around £11.8 million. And that includes all the capital works. It also includes design, legal fees, etc. But the Northern Ireland Football Fund have also asked for a 30% optimum bias contingency figure. So that figure includes all of those. So with regards to the recommendation that members agree with that Derry City Football Club should be the applicant to the Northern Ireland Football Fund for the development of Brandywell Stadium, that members approve the commencement of a process of entering into a minimum 25-year lease with Derry City Football Club for the Brandywell Stadium, including approach to DFC to seek an urgent repeal of Section 273 of the Londonderry Corporation Act 1918 to enable the football club to take forward an application for the development of the stadium, that any subsequent considerations by council of lease arrangements is cognizant of the needs of both Derry City Football Club and other users and is undertaken in full consultation with all existing user groups, and that members endorse the provision of a letter of support by council for the application to the Football Fund by Institute Football Club and any other applicants from the council area which may require similar support by the application deadline. And I haven't referenced it in the report there, members, but just to let you know, the deadline for the application is tomorrow, 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Duffy?
Thank you, Chair, and Barry, thank you for the report. And I suppose thank you to you, Philip, Karen, everybody who has been involved in a lot of work over the last, we say 4 weeks, but it's probably considerably longer. But the intensity of trying to get these negotiations done and the working group and everything else that has had to come together over the last couple of weeks has been really good to see how quickly we can pull together and get things moving. I think that the report in front of us, I hope, is a formality today, because it is really a no-brainer. It's probably the only course of action that we can actually take if we want to see the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium as part of this football fund and being taken forward. I seen a recent photograph shared on social media. I was trying to get the name of the photographer, but it was a drone photograph of the stadium last week, and it was absolutely amazing to look at with the North Stand and all the rest of it. It's really starting to take shape as a proper stadium. And I think that coming through this process here and hopefully being successful in it, we'll see the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium take its proper place in terms of stadium and throughout Ireland and being fit for purpose around European games and everything else that we have ambitions around. I am more than happy to propose this. I do think that it's good that we are taking consideration of other user groups. We know the direction of travel that Derry City were going in anyway with regard to the grass pitch and the implications that that was going to have for us. So I think this process maybe has just focused our minds a wee bit quicker than we probably had intended to do. But the opportunity is here, and we would be mad to not take it at this stage, and this is the best way forward. So I'm happy to propose the recommendations there, and also happy around the letters of support to other teams who are looking to apply for this fund. But we have waited for this for a very long time, and I certainly don't want to be part of missing the boat for Derry City Football Club. So happy to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Farrell?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Barry, for the report. I'm happy to second the proposal on behalf of the SDLP. There's 3 options on the table. One of them is that we do nothing, and that's not we can't do nothing about this. We've been waiting 14 years for this fund to open up. We've been promised money in the past about the Mark Farren stand. It didn't come. So this is the opportunity for this city to get investment in the Brandywell Stadium. It's really, really unfortunate that a decision has been made at Stormont where councils are being asked to contribute 40% to this fund when soccer clubs across the north are getting away with 5%. It's not fair to this council. It's not fair to the ratepayers. It's not fair to Derry City. It's not fair to the entire footballing fraternity across this city. So if council was to submit this application, we'd be asked to contribute nearly £5 million that we don't have readily available. So that's not an option at all. So the least worst option is that we work with Derry City Football Club to agree a lease, which will allow the football team to submit that application, which will hopefully bring investment in the city. It'll lead to an improved Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium. But I've got a couple of questions about it. First of all, the lease needs to be in place by stage 7 of the process, which is the funding arrangement for construction costs. So do we have any idea how long that's going to take? So if the lease isn't in place by that stage, the application, I would imagine, will be null and void if a lease of over 25 years is not in place. So have we any understanding of how long potentially the timescales are to get from stage 1 to stage 7? In terms of repealing the Corporation Act of 1918, which means that we can't offer a lease of more than 12 months. Do we have any idea how long that's going to take? Because if that act is not repealed, if the lease is not in place, no money is going to come. And finally, in terms of, Derry City is not the only user of the Brandywell. In the paper, it details other teams and organisations that use that stadium on a regular basis. The paper references that. It references the impact on all our users. And it mentions consultation with those groups. So is there going to be any sort of public consultation? Because it's quite a big move by this council. So if we could get some feedback on the nature of that consultation. Is it going to be public, or is it just going to be for users of the Brandywell? If we could get some feedback on likely timescales to have that Corporation Act repealed, which would allow us to give Derry City a lease of over 12 months, and realistic timescales for stage 7 of this process, because if the lease isn't in place by that stage, this doesn't happen. And if we get to stage 7, there's no lease in place, Corporation Act isn't repealed, what happens? So could we change the name in the application to council? So there's a lot of questions there about this process. We have to get this right. The money is sitting there in Stormont. Some of it should be invested in the city and district, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can, but happy to support the recommendation.
There are some legal questions there, so I'm going to hand over to Philip first, if Philip's online.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. Sorry, Chair. The simple answer is we're not exactly sure how long it'll take to repeal the legislation. The bottom line is that is something which has to be done by the Assembly. So how long it will take will depend a great deal, I think, on the political will that can be placed on the Assembly in order to prioritise taking forward that step. We're not within council sure of the exact process. We have raised the inquiry with DFC informally, and as yet we understand that they are waiting a response from officers within the Assembly as to the exact process to be undertaken. So I'm not able to give a direct answer to the question as to how long it will take. But in principle, I don't see any reason why it should not be possible for it to be done within the time frame required in order to get to stage 7. In terms of putting the lease in place, getting a lease negotiated and ready to be signed is something that could definitely be done within the time that is going to be taken for Section 273 to be repealed. So I don't think the legal formalities in terms of preparing a draft lease should be any hindrance to this whatsoever. So I think those are the questions for me at this stage, I think.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Philip. And I'm going to pass over to Barry to handle some of the other questions there.
Thank you, Chair. I hope Rory will be able to answer the particular one about consultation. There's obviously existing users, including Derry City, of the football stadium. There's other user groups within the facility, Long Tower Youth Club, the Greyhound, Brandywell Greyhound Racing Company. So look, there'll be consultation with users that are impacted, people that use the football stadium, but we'll also do a wider consultation within the community and within other user groups. In terms of the displacement, this is something we have been looking at because it has been on our radar. Members will be aware we brought an information reporter in around the surface of the Brandywell at the request of Derry City Football Club because of change in UEFA and FAI requirements. It appears now that the UEFA requirements are going to become, over the next number of years, the FAI requirements. So it was a challenge we were going to face anyway. So we have a number of options that we think we can deal with, but it will require capital investment. And that'll be something that we'll go through in terms of the capital working group. But we have an idea how we would actually deal with the user groups that would be displaced. But for information purposes, in the business case, the preferred option of the pitch is a hybrid model, which can get you up to 20 hours use per week. We are in the low 20s in terms of the usage per week now because we had to scale back use of the Brandywell to keep the 3G surface suitable for European football. So there won't be a huge difference in terms of usage because of if that's the model that they go down with a hybrid pitch. So yeah, we'll consult with individual groups and a wider public piece as this process unfolds. Really.
Cheers, Barry. But I'd asked the question about stage 7. So stage 7 in the process is the funding agreement for construction costs. So the lease needs to be in place by that stage. So do we have any idea how long it's going to take us to get from stage 1 to stage 7? Because if the lease isn't in place, the whole thing falls apart. So
through yourself, Chair, every applicant and every successful applicant, that stage will be a different timescale. All of the projects are at different stages of readiness. Some applicants may have planning permission, some mightn't have applied, some aren't as shovel ready. So it's very, very difficult to say until you've actually a design team. This is a new we've obviously had a design team previously designed the Mark Farm stand, but there's much more to this particular application than just the extension of the Mark Farm stand. There's replacement seating, there's replacement pitch, there's catch nets or environmentally friendly initiatives. So we would have the football club would have a design team of the applicant in place, and they would put a program in place of when they would expect to get to that tender stage of appointing a contractor. So it's very difficult to say, and the Northern Ireland Football Fund won't be expecting that'll be determined as you step through each of the phases.
And members, just to say, it is an overall programme. So there is a programme business case that goes beyond the already committed 36.2 million. So the expectation is that the department will be bidding for further resources to take forward not only all of the potential high scoring applications within the performance strand, but also within the grassroots strand, and also in terms of a national training centre. This is deemed to be the first phase. So I would assume that there will be an opportunity to reflect at the point of readiness and a point of additional funds being available on the timing of specific bids that might move through the programme.
have we any understanding of, right, so there's 36 million at the minute, there's going to be a lot of bids from right across the north. Have we any idea of when Derry City would be informed whether they're successful or not? Have the department given any timescales on that?
They've set out an assessment process, which is obviously going to be managed by their officer team. I presume that the volume of applications that they receive will impact potentially on that timeline, but we will check. But certainly when the scheme was announced, the expectation was that there was going to be announcements, sort of early, well, this is spring, I suppose, actually, by around sort of May, June time. But we need to confirm that with the department when they see the scale of the task ahead of them.
Thank you, Karen. We have Alderman Hussey. Oh, sorry. Yes, Alderman Hussey, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Farrell described it as the least worst option. I would describe it as the optimum option, to be quite honest with you. Members will have heard me saying before that this was something that should have been looked about. And the hold-up was the LCA 1918. We're now there. It's almost Trump-esque, I suppose, in a way, we've been bounced into this particular scenario. And I think it is the way to go. And, just let's get on with it. Irrespective, actually, of, if we're successful in this round to the fund, that leaves the club that they can apply for stuff that we can't apply for. Let the club have their run on it. And I welcome the fact that other tenants or user bodies are being taken into consideration. It's not, this isn't just Surrey City flying on their own. That, all of the other considerations are there. I'm not a member of committee, but I sincerely welcome the report. I think it's well put together. And it's feasible. I suppose the question within it would be the lease value. That will be determined by LPS, I presume. So we go ahead, and if the football club are willing to go ahead on it, let's go for it. It's the way for the club to go. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. I agree with you. It's the optimum choice, definitely. I'm not sure which Gary it is online, but I'll bring you in.
Good Chair, Councillor Donnelly. Look, I'm not a member of the committee, but I am a member of the working group that has been established. I'm in general agreement with the previous comments and that we need to begin this process. I did have some concerns about some elected reps had access to, had conversations with Derry City, and some, including myself, hadn't had them conversations, but I know that's being addressed through the working group, that Derry City will be invited to the working group meetings. I think it's also important, and some of the points that I had have been dealt with, particularly by Councillor Farrell's questions or points, and that I think it is important that the other user groups are, talked to and listened to, and the consultation will do that. I also think that that they should be given the opportunity, if it crops up or if it's required, that groups like the Ryan McBride Foundation, the Northwest Saturday Morning League, Maiden City Soccer, Ballymore Football Club, or whoever, may get the opportunity, if they have issues, to address the working group too. And again, goes without saying that I support, the application or by Institute and our potential applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Harkin.
Chair, thanks for letting me in. Yeah, just to add our support for the recommendation to take forward this proposal. I think we want to see the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium developed as quickly as possible. And look, the Minister put an obstacle in our way. I think that this is a potential solution. I think that it's good that the concerns of all our users will be addressed. But I think that this is the only way forward. And given that the application deadline is tomorrow, I'm hopeful that this will be, go through today. So thanks for the report and support the plan of action.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. All right, that is us then. And just to put on record, thanks to all the council officers and everyone that's been working on it, because it's been a long process, I'm sure. So we'll move on then to open for information. And we have, I'll just go through, and if anyone wants to speak, just indicate. All right. So item number 13, 14, 15, 16. I am just going to put on record my thanks to Seamus for 16, because I know I have you tortured, Seamus. So thank you. And it's good to see the percentage moving from 50-50 to 70-30. So I'm really happy to see that. Item number 17, 18. Councillor Boggs.
Good Chair, and it's just in relation to 2.2 from the Public Health Agency. And it's somewhat disappointing. There is a whole raft of stuff on there in relation to work that they do, and they want to keep stakeholders up to date. One of the things that I know we have been engaging with them on is, again, in relation to drugs and what they're doing from a public health perspective on drug messaging. And I think it's just worth noting that there is nothing on that newsletter. Now, that is actually the first time that I have picked one of those up at a correspondence report, so I'm not sure if there have been any included before, but it's definitely worth something keeping an eye on to see if there's anything in them, or if anybody knows, any officer knows of anything. Maybe not, but it's just worth noting and keeping an eye on if they don't include anything in that particular topic. Thanks.
Through you, Chair, Councillor Boggs, in relation to your query, there has been a meeting recently where council officers attended, and it's the Western Drug and Alcohol, called the DACT. So that would meet on a regular basis, and I understand there's ongoing work in relation to the issues that you've raised, and we can arrange for an update to be provided at the next committee meeting.
That would be helpful. Thanks, Seamus. Thanks, Chair.
That's great, Seamus. Thank you. Item number 19. 20. Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the child's rights, I know we have that as a running agenda item. I had a few of us had an update with Ciara and Claire. I think it was this week. I can't remember. It was Sunday recently. I think it was the start of this week. And we were just discussing about how the UNICEF panel is due hopefully to be coming in June, which is a quicker kind of turnaround than what we were expecting, I think. So firstly, I want to put on record the thanks for the work that's been done already by the officer staff and the other lead partners as well, because so much has gone into it. And I just wanted to highlight that one of the things that we need to have to achieve the child-friendly city kind of status is that 70% of elected reps have to have the training. And at the minute, there's 22 out of 40 of us, so that's like 55%, I think. I'm not very good at maths. So we need to encourage, if that's the only, imagine that they came over and we passed and did really, really well. And the only thing that let us down was that the elected reps didn't go for their 2-hour training. So I would just encourage everybody to reach out and get it done, because we don't want that to be the one thing that lets us down when we're so close to it now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. Okay, do we have a proposer and a seconder for confidential? Proposed Councillor Boggs, seconded Councillor Hutton.